Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in about a couple minutes, so if you want to grab your coffee, maybe something more to eat, we'll be getting the program going in just a couple minutes. Morning, everyone. We'll be starting in 2 minutes.
Platform that specializes in business intelligence and dynamic conference for digital and creative holds high-impact conferences and events, as well as top-level digital content for a video platform with the best insights. We are unique in our approach in that over a 6-month research period, we interviewed over 200 global CEOs to put together the information that becomes the content of each particular region Our platform is looking ahead to the most important economic sectors to promote the market's unique economy for national and global investors, entrepreneurs, and visitors. But it is not only the annual business guide we produce. Capital Analytics hosts high-impact leadership summits where executives can use discuss the latest obstacles and how to best handle them. Next, our subscribers stay up to date with our weekly newsletters. We cover hot topics and key issues relevant to the daily business, keeping our subscribers and individuals continually up to date. We also cover local news stories in our Invest Insights video series. Hear perspectives on the markets we cover and why there are allocations for the people making it happen right now. And lastly, the Capital Analytics podcast, where our listeners take time today to stay informed of the latest business advice for your economy. At Capital Analytics, we know great leads come from great minds, and so we know new insights.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. Well, our honored guests, we're very happy to have you here today for the official launch conference of our Invest Dallas Fort Worth publication. I know everybody's looking forward to seeing it, and everyone will be getting a copy at the end of the show today. For those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Alina Manak. I am the executive director of the publication, both Invest Dallas Fort Worth and Invest San Antonio. Most of you have met with me over the past year. And I have to say that I was so excited to fly into the DFW airport a few days ago. I've been so looking forward to meeting you all in person. It is my honor to be here with you today. And I've been working with such a vibrant region for so long, and to have the opportunity to meet you all this morning has been amazing. I will pop back on stage a little bit later, but for now, to kick things off, I would like to introduce you to our CEO and President, Abby Maloney.
Thank you very much, Alina. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh, come on. I just flew in from Miami, and I heard everything is bigger in Texas. I expect a big good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Excellent. Well, elected officials, honored guests, moderators, and speakers, everyone here today, thank you so much. My name is Abby Maloney. I'm the CEO of Capital Analytics, and welcome to the official launch conference of our Invest Dallas-Fort Worth report. We are extremely pleased to have entered the Dallas-Fort Worth market with our annual analysis of the regional landscape with insights into the existing and emerging opportunities, as well as what challenges lie ahead. I'd like to take a moment to set the stage for today's event, as well as reflecting on our findings for this year's annual report. Looking at the landscape, this is an exciting time for the Dallas-Fort Worth region. Despite the uncertainty that looms over both the national and regional landscape in the near term, our research suggests that the region is ready to continue building on its stellar regional growth towards a robust future. What was once mainly an energy region is now a thriving, diverse metropolis that is drawing from its strong educational centers to fuel a variety of growing segments. Its quality of life is attracting new residents and companies alike. Its positioning is so strong that, in fact, in July of 2021, Dallas-Fort Worth became the first major metro area in the country to regain all of its lost jobs due to the pandemic. That momentum continues today. In compiling our annual report, sectors like healthcare and education, bio and information technology, and financial services are important parts of the thriving Dallas metro area. But there are challenges too. As we point out in our business guide, rapid growth has both benefits and drawbacks. According to our interviewees, while company relocations and the infusion of people add to the tax base, for example, there's a greater scrutiny on issues like affordable and access to housing. Rising inflation and the subsequent hike in interest rates are also concerns among those that we talk to, with the prospect of a recession or, at the very least, an economic downturn on the horizon. There's also a labor shortage that, while abating, continues to be a pressure point for companies amid a new remote and hybrid working environment. There are issues that have no easy fixes, but nonetheless need to be addressed. The labor shortage is a good case in point and the subject of our first panel today, Keeping Up: How the Strength of DFW's Education Sector is Feeding Workforce Demand and What Changes Are Still Needed. As we point out in our report, the educational sector will be integral to solving this dilemma, and I'm looking forward to hearing the views from our panelists this morning. While there is uncertainty, and that will likely be continued the case for the near term, how we deal with that uncertainty will help define our future. As many have said before, to understand the future, we need to understand the past, and our second panel asks what could be next, how the last few years have shaped what development will look like moving forward. This panel will dive into the developmental strategies that leaders are taking to help the region keep pace with demand, infrastructural needs, and growing sustainability, all vital aspects to ensure that the region not only maintains its growth momentum, but does so smartly. Another key aspect for the future will be the financial landscape and what it looks like for both investors and companies and pretty much anyone with financial needs. As many DFW financial leaders have told us, the industry is changing, disrupted, or boosted, depending on your viewpoint, by the emergence of fintech. Digital is here to stay as a younger generation dictates a new way of doing business. Our third panel will look back and forward as they discuss the new financial norm, how we got here, and where it's headed. Although we face that possible recession in 2023, our interviewees in Invest Dallas Fort Worth agree that a balanced strategy and adaptability will be necessary ingredients to see us through, particularly in the short term. This need for balanced strategy and adaptability is particularly true for smaller businesses that make up most of the region and our national economy. I've experienced myself with my own company, Capital Analytics. Business intelligence is our bread and butter and will always be vital to growth. We provide that through our printed publications, our digital resources, and conferences like this. But just as important as the intelligence we provide are the relationships that we create and promote. And through these conferences and through our video platform, Invest Insights, where we provide an avenue for regional leaders to speak directly to the community. In all our discussions with hundreds of businesses and political leaders over the past year, there's a marked emphasis on optimism. Today's leaders and our team at Capital Analytics are confident that tomorrow's landscape will be stronger, brighter, and better across the spectrum of sectors that make up Dallas-Fort Worth. Well, we have quite a lineup for you today, but before our discussions begin, I would like to thank the sponsors for today's event. Our gold sponsor, Addison Airport, Collin College, Dallas Capital Bank, McCarthy, NDBT, Regions Bank, Scott and Reed General Contractors, SMU Cox School of Business, Texas Women's University, UNT G. Brent Ryan College of Business, and Vantage Bank. Our silver sponsors, Dallas Love Airport Field, Much Heart. And our bronze sponsors, Access Healthcare, Candace McShane Construction Company, Dallas Metro Group, Riverton. And our honored sponsors, True North Advisors, and Gensler. Thank you. It is with your support that we can continue to bring high-level speakers and content to the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Some housekeeping. The reports will be available at the conclusion of the event outside the conference hall, so please take a copy of the very first edition with you. You might have noticed some stands on your table with some information on our social media channels. Please be sure to join the discussion today by adding us and tagging us using the hashtag IDFW23Summit. Also, you can register for complimentary access to our entire Invest library by also using those QR codes. And as of today, the Invest Dallas Fort Worth report is available. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the opening panel that I'm also delighted to moderate, Keeping Up, How the Strength of DFW's Education Sector is Feeding the Workforce Demand and What Challenges are Still Needed to be Addressed. Panelists, please make your way to the stage. And let's give them a round of applause on their way up. Excellent, excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. I am delighted to introduce our panel. We have Dr. Rama Yelker, the Dean of the College of Business for Texas Women's University. We have Dr. Neil Matkin, the Director President of Collin College. We have Dr. Marilyn Wiley, the Dean of the University of North Texas G. Brent Ryan College of Business. And we have Dr. Brent, I was going to say Ponham, you know I was going to say it, Donham, the Vice President for Research and Economic Development for Texas A&M. So we have quite a robust discussion today, and while we have prepared our panelists with some of the questions that I'm wishing to ask today, there's one that I haven't, which is my opening one. And my first question is, are you watching the World Cup or the Cowboys, and why is it not the World Cup? Brent?
Well, probably not either one. I'm watching basketball, so
Okay.
that's what me. I'm following the World Cup to keep up with it, but I have to confess I haven't watched as much as I should now. I do need to make one correction. I'm with A&M Commerce, not Texas A&M.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Absolutely, the Cowboys. I do follow the World Cup with the highlights while the games are going on, but that's usually when I'm at work, so I do it kind of surreptitiously.
There you go. Neil?
I have a message when someone calls me, and you send your phone or whoever's calling to the messages, it says, have you no soul? Dallas is playing. So I'm definitely following Dallas and also the World Cup.
And Rama?
I'm a big NFL fan, so I am watching the Cowboys among other teams, and I'm watching the World Cup. It's exciting, yeah.
We have the next game is Saturday against the Netherlands. I'm admittedly not a big sports fan all around, but I feel the World Cup is something I should keep my eye on. So anyway, wonderful. Well, let's set the stage. The economy is evolving, and with that comes new industries, new companies, and new expansions. For what industries within the Dallas-Fort Worth are you anticipating growth? And what curriculum changes or new programs are you pursuing to match that growth? How about since we went left to right, we'll go right to left.
Thank you, Abby. Texas Women's University is just bringing our 5-year strategic plan to a close and preparing to embark on our next plan. We introduced new programs in STEM fields, particularly those where women can be in high demand and high-paying jobs in science and technology. One example of what we did with the previous strategic plan is to introduce a new professional master's of science in biotechnology. For the next strategic plan, we've evolved this initiative into an imperative to double the number of STEM opportunities for our students. And with our brand and the high market demand for more women in these positions, we have to step up and we have to provide these graduates to employers. In addition to STEM fields, particularly in the DFW area, there are more jobs being added in financial services, fintech, supply chain and logistics, blockchain, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, big data, and the transportation sector. Specifically in the transportation sector, one example that's already in the works at TWU is to address the serious airline pilot shortage. DFW is home to 2 major airlines and the second largest airport in the world, but not just by land, but also by passenger volume these days. At the same time, the industry is facing a pilot shortage. The University of Nebraska did a study in 2021 that determined that only 5% of those pilots are women. And so Texas Women's is at the perfect convergence of events to step up and help fill that gap through a pilot training program. Also this summer, we received a grant through the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to develop certificates that accelerate careers. And so we started developing certificates in business analytics and healthcare analytics, and particularly providing women graduates in those areas. So those are some of the things we're doing.
Some of the things, I'll say that's a lot of things. Neil, how about yourself?
Wow, there's just so much going on in so many areas where there are shortages. But we also are looking at aviation, which is a big, big area, not just in the pilot training, but also in the mechanics and the airframe and all the things it take to make the airplanes stay in the air safely. But we've also just concluded a tour visiting with all of our hospital CEOs in the region. And the medical staffing shortages are absolutely just scary. There are some floors of various hospitals that are operating with half staff. And we can talk about all we want about the beds in the hospital, but if they don't have the staff in the aviation industry as well as the medical industry, then you're not going to get people admitted and get the care that they need. So we're looking at ways to increase that pipeline. One of the most exciting things that's happened at Collin in the last several years is we've really taken a headfirst dive into the technical training that we kind of looked over for many years. A lot of comprehensive community colleges did that. We didn't do as much of it. We invested in a $170 million technical training center, and some of the folks here from McCarthy, where are you guys? You guys built it, and I want to tell you, it's a beautiful facility, and thank you. But we invested this incredible amount of money from McCarthy to build this fabulous center designed by Perkins and Will, and it's really taking off and doing some great things for us. There's some news that I can't share with one of our major automotive manufacturers, but when they unembargo it, I'll be happy to share that with you. But along with that, we're working and got our first internship program with a major company called Raytheon, doing incredible things with Encore and so many others. And so we see those technical pipelines as being something that's very, very important. We launched a cybersecurity bachelor's degree now, I think 2 years ago. We've got 200 students that are currently in the pipeline with about 1,000 in the feeder programs that come to it. That's in a 2-year period of time. So between cybersecurity, technical needs, aviation, and medical, there's just a lot of ground to cover, and we're excited to continue to address it.
Absolutely. Marilyn.
We see tremendous growth, particularly in the financial services area, and we are trying to work very closely with corporate partners to support that by preparing students with a toolkit. So that includes things like having them take securities exams while they're still in college so that the employer can see when they graduate that they're ready to go to work and will be successful in that field. It includes infusing analytics into all of our curriculum and major areas. And really the concept of building a toolkit for the job that may not exist or that may evolve into something that we don't see yet. So we are working, as I said, very closely. We have corporate partners advising all of our programs through advisory boards and through regular infusions into our classroom. We also are increasing our internship opportunities with the philosophy that every student should have a work-related, career-related work experience before they leave us, so that the employer can, first of all, get a trial run and see how the employee will do in the market, but more important, so the student can continue to develop those work skills that go beyond the classroom in what they do. And then just to pick up on a couple of things my colleagues have mentioned, in aviation, we have developed a program in aviation logistics as the 4th largest inland port in the country that trains airport managers and that works with multimodal freight operations to support every company moving into the area. And then again in the STEM fields, particularly analytics, cybersecurity, and related, FinTech and related fields. So again, building that toolkit to prepare our graduates for whatever an employer may need now or in the future.
Absolutely. And Brent?
For some of you may not know, but first of all, A&M Commerce, we are located about 50 miles northeast of the Dallas area. So we have a very unique industry group out there, but shares many of the same shortages that we've talked about here, the healthcare, the STEM field specifically, cybersecurity is a big area, the business analytics. So some of the new programs that we have come up with already is the business analytics. We started a bachelor's in cybersecurity, and I'll talk just a little about that, a unique one on that. But we're also one of the leaders in competency-based education. Now that is not giving credit for your experience, but if you have experience in the field, we have an expedited way that you can get through a program because of your knowledge and everything. And so, for instance, the competency-based criminal justice, we have a large number of police officers who are going through that to better their careers and bring that on. Again, I mentioned the number of engineering programs that we've also brought, and one of my colleagues talked about the upskilling through graduate certificates and everything, and you also mentioned the hands-on. So one of the unique things with our cybersecurity, it's actually on a campus the A&M system has down in Bryan, Texas, called RELIS. And that facility brings both workforce development, research, and academics there. So the regional schools each have programs, and that's where our cybersecurity is. And because of that, we have access to unique labs like the Texas A&M Cyber Range, the Cybersecurity Center, and so a lot of our students are getting that hands-on experience working in SOCs or other variety of hands-on internships like that.
You all have mentioned some really interesting developments on your curriculum, and in continuation of that discussion, in many of our interviews that we've hosted over the course of putting together our annual report, the changing needs of skill sets are apparent to match the increasingly digital economy, as well as the changing demands of the consumer. How are you adapting your curriculum to meet those evolving workforce needs? Maybe I can open it up to who wants to answer first.
I'm going to
Marilyn?
come back to the concept of a toolkit.
Yep.
Because we really want students to leave us with good critical thinking skills and analytical skills. But we also need to think about the end user. So in our analytics program, we don't just teach Python and data management and mainframe computing skills and everything that goes around that, but we also teach the user interface and the visual display, because it's very important not just to acquire that knowledge, to be able to analyze data, but to communicate it to your employers, to the rest of your team in other fields. And I think those communication skills are paramount in how we're trying to address this.
Absolutely. Neil?
You know, you mentioned earlier advisory teams, and we have a lot of majors throughout the college that have advisory teams from industry. And they're not advisory teams that are just pacifist looking on. They're actively engaged in keeping that curriculum fresh and making sure that that connection is made between what the college is actually outputting and offering in its classrooms and what industry is hiring. You know, when I did my dissertation at Texas A&M Commerce years and years and years and years and years ago, it was about trying to figure out what was coming out of four-year MIS programs and what industry was actually hiring, using at that time something called the Data Processing Management Association's model curriculum. That idea of keeping things fresh and keeping things connected is absolutely vital. And so the more we can tie ourselves into our communities and in the business and industry, the way you're discussing at UNT, that's a fantastic connection to make sure it stays fresh.
Absolutely. Rama?
Having faculty on the ground and empowering them to innovate in curriculum, providing them with micro internships, providing them with industry connections, it's very important for them to stay current other than having academic degrees, to stay involved with the industries. Definitely regional associations of commerce and partnering with other higher education institutions in the way we complement each other and support each other. For example, we partnered with 4-year and 2-year institutions on a Gates Foundation grant recently, and we, the basic purpose of that grant was to enhance transfer student enhancement through technology. And so it's not just getting a grant and doing it independently as one university, but as regional public universities, when we partner, I think we can leverage our strengths. And we also have to attract talented faculty and talented students and keep them here. So that is a strategy that we adopt, and we believe in preparing our students for jobs that don't exist yet, as my colleague Marilyn just said. I mean, who would have thought with no inventory of cars that Uber could become the biggest taxi company? And with no inventory of homes or hotels, Airbnb is the largest hotel in the world. So we prepare our students and we give them the knowledge, skills, and perspectives, and so they're ready and prepared for the world.
Absolutely. Brent, did you want to add?
And I'm going to take just a little different twist because we're doing much of the same, but I think not only teaching the students that through the digital technology, but many of them already have it and they want to utilize that as part of their education. So we're seeing a change to the online, not only an asynchronous, but a synchronous mode where used to it may have been a few schools. Now I think all of us are beginning to move into that realm and to use the technology that's out there to keep up with how it's emerging. As you mentioned, we're going to have troubles keeping up with as fast as the technology moves. So if we don't utilize industry and our industry partners to assist in that, we will have difficulty keeping up with where the world is moving.
Absolutely. I'd like to get a little bit more individual, starting with you, Neil. Collin College has the second lowest tax rate of any community college in Texas, and the lowest in district tuition. How crucial are institutions like yours in curbing the barriers to access for higher education, and how important are community colleges in feeding the current workforce demand?
Really appreciate the question. It's a great question because it really gets to the heart of what we're trying to accomplish and everyone on the stage wants to accomplish. Looking at the community college, we serve as the Ellis Island, the on-ramp to higher education. And students that want to get a certificate and go directly into the workforce, we serve that need. But the predominant people that come through Collin actually transfer to one of my colleagues here on this stage. And so we think of ourselves as that on-ramp, that acceleration lane, that Ellis Island kind of an approach. And having a lower tuition opens access to more students. You know, we, in 2017, got permission from the legislature and the governor signed into law the ability to let us do a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. And some of our higher education colleagues, and I won't comment on any of them that happen to be on the stage currently, weren't necessarily in favor of that because they felt like it was going to take students and market share away from some of the existing programs. Right. Well, what we've observed now in operation for the last 2 years is it hasn't done that. What it's actually done is open the door to students who would have never have gone to university for the program. And we're very proud to play that role. And I think it's an absolutely vital role, and it's one that is a hallmark for Collin. We were just joking the other day, my board chair was at another meeting kind of like this, giving opening remarks. And he talked about the lowest tuition in the state. And I thought, how does the guy, at the board chair, where there's the highest community college tuition in the state, how does he introduce himself? I guarantee he doesn't say that, okay? So it's a hallmark for us, and we're very proud of it.
And Rama, more than half of Texas Women's University students are first-generation college students, and the university is 4th in the nation for diversity according to U.S. News and World Report. How is the university working to help these students develop marketable skills that allow them to thrive as global citizens and immediately become productive professionals in the workplace?
Let me start with sharing a story of why diversity matters. In 2018, Texas Women's University sent its first team to compete in a space design challenge sponsored by NASA. And we went up against universities that had engineering colleges. We don't have a college of engineering. We went up against universities funded at the highest level of research funding. Texas Women's is not funded at that level. And yet our team won first in 3 of the 4 judged categories, including the best overall. Now, you might think we had a stellar team. And we did, but maybe it was just a fluke, right? Recently, the competition expanded and the number of judged categories went from 4 to 5. Our all-female team won first in 4 of those categories and second in the 5th. Since 2018, we've swept the awards not once, not twice, but thrice. Something is going on here. I can point to one thing in particular, that's excellence, of course. Our students are highly motivated to excel. A second element is that our students are big in collaboration. They involved multiple departments, went to multiple professors to coach them for this process. And the third is that, this is the biggest one, our students bring different perspective to the table. Many of the challenges in space travel have never had a woman's perspective. And lo and behold, new perspectives unlock new solutions. And that's how Texas Women's University was able to excel in this NASA competition. And that's what we bring to the table. So that's just one example of the diversity that we bring. And now what about the how? You know, Reshma Saujani, founder of Girls Who Code, said this about ways we socialize boys and girls differently. She says, when boys fail at something, we tell them to try it again, right? This socializes them to bravery. When girls fail at something, especially at things that are traditionally taught for boys, they're often told to try something safer. And this socializes them to perfection. So, well, at Texas Women's, we teach our students bravery. And we give them ample opportunities where they can take risks. We give everyone permission to fail. And as Sujani says, fail fast, fail quick, fail often, and you'll learn quickly.
Fabulous. And Marilyn, a vital part of developing workforce-ready students is building their tangible and specific skill sets prior to graduation. How can universities, and in this case business schools, best stay connected to the needs of the corporate community? And how can the corporate community best assist in developing workforce-ready graduates?
We absolutely agree with our mission being prepare the workforce of the future and the business leadership of this state and this region. And we do that reflecting the population that we have. We look very much like the population of the state of Texas. We are diverse. We are about 40% first generation. We are not necessarily privileged economically. It's a quite broad spectrum of students. And so we start from the philosophy that every student we admit is qualified to graduate, and it is our job to reach them, retain them, and help them do that. And we only do that in business with, as I said, strong corporate partnerships. So we actually have an advisory board for every single program and major. And it might have, depending on the size of the major, 5 people, it might have 20. But it is populated with those who will hire and train our students in the future so that they can tell us exactly what they need to see. For example, we have a program that is called mainframe computing, and people roll their eyes and they say, mainframes? Well, I can tell you, many of the financial services firms in this region still are heavily invested in mainframe technology. Sure. IBM is still selling them, and they need people who can do that. So we have clients who fly in from New York, I won't mention their name, to interview our students because not many schools have met that need. Wow. But at the same time, we're working with our partnership team to recognize the greater need for cloud computing capability. So we are changing our curriculum so that we offer that specialization as well, and students can come out versed in both and ready to evolve as the climate changes. So again, it is that partnership. We also bring people into our classrooms on a regular basis. We have within the college roughly 200 corporate speakers every semester. They vary. They come into all of our majors. We have applied research projects in all of our capstone classes and many of our specialized major classes where students will work directly with a corporate partner to solve one of their problems. Often present their work to directors or even the CEOs of those companies. So again, they are seeing what is happening real time and being involved in that work that matters to the companies that we serve. And I think above and beyond all that, we start from the very beginning, having our students think about where they're going. Because we recognize with first generation students in particular, many of them go to college with the plan that I'm going to go to college and I'm going to graduate, and then someday I'll look for a job. That's not how we do it. We start them out in their first year with us in a course that we call professional development that I like to refer to as who am I and where am I going? Because if you major in philosophy, you may be driven by a desire to think about things. If you major in business, I suspect you're driven by a desire to get a job when you graduate. So we need to start introducing students at the beginning to what those possibilities are so that they take a direct path toward a degree that will serve them for not only what they think they want to do, but many things that they can do. And we continue to reinforce that throughout their 4 years with us through very specifically focused people. I think the word soft skills gets overused, but the things that are not technical in nature. Back to how do you communicate what you know? How do you know if your answer is good or not and test your solution? How do you frame that question? How do you show up for your first day of work? So it's that combination that I think builds the readiness that we're seeking and gives us good, strong employee relationships. Excuse me. And lets us graduate work-ready students that will build the future of this community.
Absolutely. Brent, Texas A&M Commerce was ranked in the top 100 universities nationally by a U.S. News & World Report for social mobility. What has the university implemented to achieve this recognition, and how can this accomplishment by your university be used as a model towards bettering higher education's ability to enroll and graduate large portions of students with economic disadvantages?
Thank you for that. About 50% of our students are Pell eligible for grant, and about 70% identify themselves as first generation. So recognizing our demographics, we are intentional about providing services that will help those students succeed. If they come to us as a freshman, we have what's called a success team now, to where we put the advising and financial liaisons and all the services in a group that stays with them from the time they start to get through. Because if you're not familiar with the higher education, the lingo that we use oftentimes, we use it for job security, I always say, but to make sure that we know what we're talking about. But for somebody new to the system, what are you talking about a FAFSA? What are you talking about, you know, how many hours I have to take? I've had students say 21 hours. I got to take 21 hours every week per day. No. So that's intentional on that. So besides the success, but we also recognize a lot of these students are going to come to us through like our partner here at Collin College. And so we have built transfer agreements that, I won't use the word I just did, transfer, but rather apply and accept. Because one of the confusions students have is they hear, well, if you take this, it's going to transfer. And in their mind, that means it's going to count. It may not, depending on what major they use. So we try and use the terms, we'll accept it, but we want to apply. So when we work with our partners, we want to apply. We have developed, on the transfer, a large number of our students are also transfer. I was recently involved in an ABET accreditation for an engineering, and the visitor was shocked of how many transfer students. Now, this visitor happened to be an evaluator from West Point, so 2 transfer students would have been a huge amount. But nevertheless, he was still amazed at how many transfer students. But that's a lifeblood for us. We actively seek those transfer students. We've developed programs, the AAS program and the Associated Applied Arts Science, oftentimes in the past had a hard time transferring. We have developed programs that those will seamlessly come in, and a student not only can achieve a bachelor's degree, but move on into a master's. So I think more than anything, it's intentional. You have to know what the students are and not treat it in a traditional manner that many of us have experienced.
Well, this happens almost every single time I moderate. The discussion is just so robust, and I wish we had all the time in the world, but we're coming close to the end of our time. So I'd like to ask one question and open it up to all of you. And we have a lot of business leaders from the community here with us, so this is intended to speak directly to our audience. Business leaders are constantly communicating that they're unable to find the talent they need. In tackling this issue, what are some resources they should look into moving forward that currently aren't utilized to their fullest potential? How about we start, Neil, and move to the right?
All righty. You said Neil, so it shocked me for a second. That's right. I think, get involved with the schools. You know, they've all mentioned advisory committees and advisory boards. We have them also. It's a low time commitment, but a great impact. You truly are, those advisory boards give us the eyes and ears to where the industry is going so that we know how to align with that. One other thing I would say is visibility. Oftentimes, as a company, we see them when they're hiring, and then when that time they're not, we don't see them. Students, they lose focus on, oh, that's an industry that's still viable. So even during those periods of time where you might not be hiring, stay visible. Stay active with the university and the colleges and everything during those times. Those would be a couple things.
Fabulous. Marilyn?
I think I'll pick up on visibility in one more way. I want to emphasize that students will send their resumes and apply to jobs at companies that they know about. Mm-hmm. So we have lots of ways for our students to get to learn about you. And they can be as simple as calling one of our recruiting team and talking about your needs more specifically rather than just posting your job or coming to our career fair. They can include saying, I want to target students in the risk management and insurance major. I want to host a pizza party. And the whole club will come, I promise you, if you give them
Who doesn't
food,
like
they will
food?
show up. And they'll get to hear about what you do and who you are and start getting you on their radar to apply. And those relationships can span whatever degree that you need. I will say we, and you I'm sure too, suffer from the joy of being a large university. We have 8,900 students in our College of Business now. We're the largest college at the university. That is a blessing in that we can offer you every kind of skill and talent and personality to meet what you're seeking, but it's hard to personally serve that many students. So we need you to talk with us about how we can work together to more closely refine the needs that you have and engage you with our students so that you do get that personal attention and they get to meet you in that way.
Neil?
I'd like to start by mentioning, and Brent, I don't mean to embarrass you at all, but I think yesterday you got promoted to a vice presidency and didn't have an
Yes.
opportunity to change your name tag, but congratulations. I want to take a little bit of a different approach, and for those of you that have heard me speak about this, I'm going to apologize in advance because it's kind of a passion at this point. But I reference a book by Paul Tough called How Children Succeed. And it's talking about the neglect generation of iPads and iPhones and kids that are left their own electronic devices and really not able to function in the same way that all of you in this room learned to function to be where you are today. And the reason I mention that is to play off of the comments that Brent and Marilyn made so far, in the sense that what business needs to do more than anything else in the world is fund and get involved in boot camp, immersion, and mentor programs, helping students to connect to their future and helping them to see that opportunity in the way forward. And I'll give you the example that really brought this home to me recently. I referenced earlier that a team, and several of us in the room as well as others, have gone and met with all of the hospital CEOs, their chief medical officers, oftentimes their chief nursing officer and others, sometimes their chief human resource officers. And one of the things they're battling is that 8th graders, when surveyed, and 7th graders, when surveyed, they know about doctors and nurses in the hospital, but they don't know about the other 40 specialized fields that it takes for a modern hospital to function. So how do we get involved with kids in the 7th and 8th grade, 6th grade fields and help them understand what's really out there in terms of potential? And then once we help them understand what's out there, how do we help them engage in a way that overcomes what I'll call the distractions that are part of our modern age? So that's kind of the thought to me, is the business industry engaging at an earlier spot and supporting those very direct mentor, immersion, and boot camp kind of opportunities for kids to see what's possible in their particular field in terms of the different job functions and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And Rama?
There are many ways you can engage, not just when you're recruiting, like Marilyn and others said. You can guest speak in classes. You can come and judge competitions. We, at Texas Women's University, we have something called the Jane Nelson Institute for Women Leadership, in which we have a Center for Women Entrepreneurship. There are coaching opportunities. There are judging opportunities for Shark Tank competitions, business plan competitions, and of course engaging with student clubs and Career Connections Office for us and the Pioneer Center for Student Success. There's something called Handshake that most of us use in our universities, and once you register on Handshake and have a presence, it's not just during internships, you can engage with students. All our students are there. It's a very simple, easy to use process, but there's some outreach involved. Our students just told us yesterday that they react better and they respond if their peers tell them to do something. So it's really important to reach that group of people that can influence other students. So those are some of the ways I would suggest you engage.
Absolutely. Well, Rama, Neil, Marilyn, Brent, thank you very much for the discussion today. Let's give them a round of applause. And we would like to present to you the first copy of the book, so if I could have you stand here for a photo. We have the very first copy of the report to present to the panel, so we're going to have a little photo op.
Hello, hello. Thank you again to our moderator and panelists for such an insightful first panel discussion. For those that don't know me yet, my name is Jimena Terán. I'm the Regional Director of the Southeast markets that we cover at Capital Analytics, such as Miami, Charlotte, Jacksonville, Raleigh-Durham, San Antonio, and now Dallas-Fort Worth. It is a true honor to be here witnessing such a great group of people come together to discuss the most relevant topics within the business community of Texas. A couple of reminders. The reports will be available at the conclusion of the event outside the conference hall. Please take a copy on your way out. Also, you can now register to read the Invest Dallas Forward report completely complimentary by using those QR codes on your table. You not only get that report, but also free access to our entire library, which consists of over 19 markets. Finally, please join our discussion on social media today by following our handles, also on that handy table stand, using the hashtag IDFW23Summit. With that, I am pleased to announce the panel presenter of our coming panel on what could be next, how the last few years have shaped what development will look like going forward. Please help me welcome Shanice Hughes, Assistant Director, Administration and Customer Engagement at Dallas Love Field Airport, to the stage.
Good morning. As she said, my name is Shanice Hughes, and I'm Assistant Director of Administration and Customer Engagement for Dallas Airport System, which includes Dallas Love Field, Dallas Executive Airport, and Heliport. The system is owned and operated by the City of Dallas, not Southwest Airlines. A lot of people think that. My purpose is to introduce the moderator for what could be next, how the last few years have shaped and what development will look like going forward. But before I do that, I want to commend each and every one of you for just making it through the last 3 years. Give yourself a hand. So much has changed, right? I mean, inflation, the cost of doing business, how we do business, and what's important to us individually and corporately. I can't be here today without telling you some things about the City of Dallas, or the city manager may fire me. So please give me a couple of moments for that, okay? We are constantly changing and innovating what the city and the airport system looks like. In that, we have over $3 billion of financial deals and infrastructure coming forward to transform Dallas Convention Center, the streets, water utilities, economic development, and real property investments, residential development, and new business headquarters coming to Dallas. In the aviation industry, of course, we are very excited about some of the innovations such as helicopter taxis. Yes, the Jetsons are finally coming true real soon. Electric flying vehicles, and the addition of new and innovative screening, along with infrastructure and development at both Love Field and Dallas Executive Airport. Dallas Executive Airport is over there. Don Blair, will you raise your hand? If you're interested in getting involved in Dallas Executive Airport through your investments, this is my commercial, please see her. She has lots of things coming on the horizon that will be good for you to invest in. As the 9th largest city, Dallas regularly issues debt for voter-approved projects or to capitalize on refunding opportunities for savings. We have over $1 billion in commercial paper programs. So I'm just telling you what you want to put your money into if you're interested. In February 2022, Dallas City Council selected a $2 billion option to transform the Kay Bailey Hutchins Convention Center. And this is new and exciting for the city of Dallas, and it will change what downtown Dallas looks like. It'll have an integrated transportation hub that brings together local transit options and area transportation improvements that connect more communities to downtown. The result will turn the Convention Center district into a regional catalyst for growth and for opportunities for years to come. Voters approved the Proposition A, aka Breimer Bill, for this and for Fair Park on November the 8th, approving a 2% increase in hotel occupancy tax. So the city will be issuing up to $1.5 billion to pay for renovations and improvements in multiple issuances over multiple years for improvements at Fair Park and Kay Bailey Hutchins. So I wanted to let you guys know that so that you'll have that on your horizons. Lastly, before I get out of your way and do what they asked me to do, let me tell you that what's next for the city of Dallas is very promising. We're looking for all types of innovation and infrastructure, not just at the airport, but at the city as a whole. So if you are interested in being a part of the growth of the city of Dallas, I have a website for you. I'm going to repeat it 2 times just so you can get it, okay? It is cityofdallasbonds.com. cityofdallasbonds.com if you are interested in investing with us. Okay, so let me do what they brought me here for. Nathan Kowalis will be moderating panel number 2. He is the Senior Vice President and Dallas Business Unit Leader at McCarthy Building Companies. Please welcome Nathan, who will introduce the panel about what could be next and welcome them up to the stage. Thanks.
Looks like I'll take this one. I just want to bring up the panelists, introducing Joel Jenkinson, Airport Director for Addison Airport, Tim Hudson, Aviation Leader and Principal at Gensler, Mark Roberts, Director of Research at the Folsom Institute for Real Estate at SMU, and lastly, Eric Gilbert, Vice President at Scott & Reed General Contractor. So if we'll give them a hand. Thank you for joining us this morning. Shanice, I was going to say we could just add a chair next to you. I mean, next to us, you did such a good job, so thank you. So it's an honor to share the stage with these leaders of our industry, and I wanted to just kick it off. So we're gonna kind of take a little step back, and then we're going to talk about our current state, and then we'll talk about really what's next, focusing. So this one's for all of you. After a banner few years, even preceding the pandemic, DFW has shown itself to be a top market in terms of construction activity, with over 60 million square feet of industrial development already built and another 8 million square feet in office construction in the pipeline. How has the city's geography transformed? How has the geography transformed, and what are some of the potential strains and opportunities that it will provide? We'll start, Eric.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. First and foremost, I think from a geography standpoint, you got to look at Uptown, right? It's a great example of all the infill development that's going on there. You've got the Quad redevelopment project. Goldman's obviously coming into town. That's no secret anymore. The HQ going down there. Pretty exciting. Trammell Crow's got a big play, office play, along with Granite and some other ones. I think that these are really intense Class AA developments with retail, residential, and office. So that's a real positive on the change of geography. I think that you're looking at a good labor base, an educated workforce that's coming in, that's going to help what we already have here. The negatives, well, you have to make a reservation now to get a table at a restaurant, which has been a bit of a challenge. But no, really, it's, again, the schools, public and private now. I know people that are saying, I have to get my child in pre-K1 to stay into a private school, or where we are as far as population with public schools. Housing, do I buy or rent? And then infrastructure. It's the same story that we talk on and on again.
Mark?
Yeah, it's hard to find challenges so on the geography because Dallas is unique in the sense that it is able to expand, and in so doing, it helps to keep prices balanced against the backdrop of what's going on with inflation right now. So there, we see these nodes that have been developed. I can remember when I got married in this ballroom 30 years ago, and this was one of the nodes, Las Colinas. And we've gone out to South Lake, and likewise gone to Frisco, and we've gone to McKinney. And one of the things that benefits Dallas and its growth is the fact that it does have a great transportation system. And then when you do have these nodes, people don't have to travel that far to get to their place of employment. Think about New York. Everybody's got to take a train into downtown, and it's costly to do so, and the rents are pretty high. So that doesn't necessarily lend itself to growth or investment. Dallas, on the other hand, has got the geography that really sort of supports that growth. I think the opportunities ahead are going to be to maybe infill some of those places between some of those nodes on some investments.
Tim, why don't you go ahead and beat 30 years getting married here in this ballroom?
Fair enough. Yeah, we had our honeymoon was here.
Oh, you did?
We did, legit. Before we went on our cruise, we stayed here. So
was it 30 years ago?
It was longer than that.
Oh.
Yeah, Las Colinas wasn't what it is. Yeah, but from a regional perspective, I'm going to say, from what I do as an aviation architect, doing it for 30 years, I look at DFW, and I look at the airport and the connectivity it has to the world. And what that really leads to is, you hear the word used many times, the phrase economic engine. It really is. You look at the connectivity between Asia to the United States to South America, that big route back and forth. It's amazing what that does for us as an economy. Well, what we're doing now, and if you can see the changes, we're helping DFW Airport right now plan over 800 acres on the south side of the airport right now just for commercial development. Why? Because there's a growth in that market. I know you guys are seeing that, Nathan. And we're looking at warehouse, we're looking at office, we're looking at possibly even residential at the airport now. Why? Because the economy is driving that now. Because of the ease of connectivity to this airport, that's what it's doing, is driving that business. And we've enjoyed every opportunity to be part of that growth. And we just look forward to more come like Amazon. You look at where Amazon's got their facility built out right there at the interchange of 121 and 635. Well, on the other side at the airport, they're looking at the potential for, up to 5 million more square feet if they can get it. Why? Because Amazon's growing. Why they're growing here? Connectivity. They're close to the airport. Companies like Amazon want to be close for their employees and for their cargo to get out fast. They like Dallas because of the weather. It's easy to deal with. We don't get the significant freezes like you might get further north. So it's unique to have an airport with this kind of connectivity that we all take the benefit of, that also drives the business.
Joel?
Addison is a little bit different. We're not as large as Dallas by any means. We're about a 4 square mile city on the north edge of Dallas, just along the North Dallas Tollway, for those who aren't familiar. Addison Airport is 386 acres total, so an 800-acre development is not in our works, although we do have significant redevelopment. Town of Addison was founded in 1953 officially, and we're in a redevelopment phase now. We're pretty much built out as an inner ring suburb of Dallas, but our location, our central location, really drives a lot of business, and we're in between a lot of those business centers, the Richardson Telecom Corridor, the Galleria at 635 on the North Tollway, Legacy in Plano, and of course here in Las Colinas. Our market as an airport, we're part of the national airport system, right? DFW serves airline passengers. Dallas Love Field serves primarily airline passengers. You know them mostly through Southwest Airlines, but they also have a significant business aviation component down there. A lot of business aviation in that area. But Addison is one of about 11 relievers in the area that handle general aviation traffic. So not airlines, but frequently business traffic, and that's our bread and butter, is business aviation. corporate jets, and these are decision makers. These are your business teams that are coming out to do business in this area or that are here going elsewhere. So we do have that transportation infrastructure, and we also have hotels, restaurants, and office space. That's the major part, and all of that goes hand in hand. So we're kind of a microcosm of the greater Dallas area. Although in that respect, we don't really have any room to expand or grow. We got 4 square miles, a little over that, so there's not a lot of room for growth there. It's more redevelopment and highest and best use focus. So that's where we are right now, and we have had a good few years, and we're looking forward to some more. But it's a slightly different than looking at the DFW area as a whole.
Well, the question was strains and opportunities. You guys chose to focus on all the opportunities, so that's exciting for us here in Dallas. Next question is really kind of gets into our current state of, some economic indicators, as we talked about earlier, are demonstrating signs of potential slowdown. And the question is, are there any concerns to consider regarding the potential of absorption of developments or projects currently under construction? And if not, what are those industries that you see continuing to drive DFW's growth? So Joel, we'll start with you this time.
Well, as far as the strains go, we haven't figured out a way to generate more land. So that's a problem. So the land that we do have is very expensive. And Addison Airport in particular saw a lot of development in the 1980s. And the way development happens on an airport is through something called a ground lease. The airport is required to own and control the land because we take money from FAA. So we can't sell you the land. We're not going to sell you the land anyway. What we do is write you a ground lease, and those have a statutory limit of 40-year terms. So everything that was built in the 80s is now terming out, and we had a tremendous turnover in ground leases in the last year. We had 7, which is about 20% of our ground leases turnover. We got 4 more coming back this year. And those are all redevelopment opportunities, because what happens in a ground lease is somebody comes in, rents the land from us, builds something, and owns and operates it for up to 40 years. At the end of that 40-year term, they can either redevelop it and renegotiate a new lease with the airport, or they can let it go and the airport can take it back, or sometimes we insist on taking it back for the redevelopment opportunity. So the stuff that was built in the 1980s is pretty tired and needs a refresh, and we're seeing a lot of redevelopment right now. And I think one of the biggest ones that we had just opened up is Galaxy FBO. FBO is a fixed-based operator, for those not familiar with the industry. It's essentially a giant service station for aircraft and their pilots and passengers. Not only do they provide gas, they provide a whole wide range of services, from ground transportation and, fix you up with a hotel and a restaurant booking and all that kind of thing. So there's a whole bunch of amenities that go along with that. But Galaxy just opened up about 100,000 square feet of hangar space, and it's already full. I mean, they've been open a month, and the demand is just unbelievable right now. There's a lot of growth in the business aviation market, and a lot of that goes to where we were 2.5 years ago in the middle of the pandemic. A lot of folks who needed to travel for business decided that the airports weren't for them. They didn't want to stand in a line with a couple thousand strangers, get on an airplane with about 100 strangers, and have all that risk. And some of them decided, I need to travel, I'm going to try charter. A lot of those folks really love charter, and they're not going back to the airlines. So there has been tremendous growth in charter. So that's a big opportunity for us there. And one of the constraints we have is, again, we don't have any problem filling up what we've got. It's just getting new hangars built. We have new aircraft on order and people wanting to move up, and it's just we're out of space. So that growth is we'll absorb as much as we can, and then it's going to go to other places in the Metroplex.
Tim?
Okay, so redevelopment on our side. This is probably the busiest we've ever been. In the 30 years I've been doing this, it is the busiest I've seen the aviation marketplace, at least from a terminal design perspective. You look at what happened with the pandemic. In 2019, I don't want to be the person who keeps dropping back to the pandemic, but the thing to keep in mind is that 2019, everyone's looking to expand because of the passenger volume. It was incredible. Every terminal was being taxed. Pandemic happened, people backed off, but no one thought it was going to come back as fast as it did. Well, now it is. It came back faster than it was in 2019. And so now what we're finding ourselves in, which is selfishly good for us, is there's too many projects coming out because everyone wants to get in line to get federal funds. They want to address the problems that they didn't see coming. So a lot of our clients, we're having to help them work through these problems. We're having to help them get in line to get the federal funds now because they need the money now because they have to expand their terminals. I can tell like in Austin Bergstrom, where we do some work there. They have a building that's very significantly constrained, and they're in a race to get that building expanded because they can't keep up with the volume. DFW Airport is another example of can't keep up with the volume. That's why I've heard them talk about Terminal F. You've heard them talk about having to renovate C. They're trying to find ways to push more volume through it. But that also puts us in a unique situation to be creative and be innovative. And you look at DFW Airport as an example on C. I don't know how many of you saw what they did during the pandemic. They did the High Sea Gates project, which is what it started out as 40 years ago, they built some temporary gates. In an airport, there's no such thing as temporary. Once they build it, they're not going to give it back because why? It's making money, and they don't want to disrupt the passengers. So they looked at it, they studied it, said, you know what? It's going to take too much money to fix it, to get it back up to life safety codes and what they need to do to meet today's needs. And so they went a whole different direction. They said, it's pandemic, it's slow right now, let's strike while we can. And so they put out an RFQ to try to do what they called prefabrication. Well, they literally took down the 5 gates on C, and while they're taking those down, they were across the airfield building 5 sections of those 5 gates in steel, in the skin, in the roof. And then they literally took the the cranes that moved the space shuttle, they lifted those pieces up and literally put them across the airfield, dropped them in place. When that was done, they said, come and do the finishes, was over and done with. They set an example of how to be innovative because they're driven by that need to be so. And now they're the envy. I mean, you'd be amazed how many airports talk about what they did during the pandemic to be that creative to address the need for growth.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, in terms of slowdown and absorption for space, I think it's useful to sort of take a look at the nature of the employment base, first off in Dallas. And again, 30 years ago, it was a much different employment base. We had more manufacturing employment. There was a little bit more finance. There was a lot of construction. Today, believe it or not, the diversity, the percentage of employment in each of those major categories is very similar to the U.S. So we have a much more diversified economy today than we've had in the last 30 years. And it's been growing at 2%. National employment growth has been on average over the last 20 years, somewhere around 9.9%, a little less than 1%. So we've got double the growth and yet same diversity of employment. And so when there are economic shocks, we can bounce back quicker in terms of that. And then just on the absorption side, you can't overlook just the migration that's taking place. And this has been happening before COVID. Texas and Southeast and Southwest have seen a lot more population growth and more in-migration from other cities and states. And that obviously got accelerated during the pandemic, and today, the occupancy rates, with the exception of the office market, are still above average. When you add more people to an economy, guess what? You need more warehouse space. For every man, woman, and child in the U.S., there's anywhere from 30 to 40 square feet of per capita of warehouse space that is storing the goods that you may buy over the next 3 to 6 months. And so with the transportation infrastructure and the diversity here to service that, we don't have quite the volatility. We'll go through cycles just like every other market. But fortunately, we're not a market like Las Vegas or Orlando that is very concentrated in leisure. We have a leisure component here clearly, but if we're going to head into sort of a slowdown here, those are markets where job growth tails off a lot quicker and has issues. So we're in a much better shape than a lot of other markets.
How do I go after that? Really, that was great. Quickly, though, to piggyback off of that, there's always concern when there's people and money involved, right? I think, but we're in a good spot. These projects were done a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the money was cheaper and the land made sense. So the developments coming out of the ground right now, they just didn't happen overnight. So there was careful preparation and underwriting. Again, our employment base is strong. Our business personally is, we're as busy as we've ever been, which we're blessed with work. We know there may be a pause, but with that standpoint, I think one of the drivers is from the concerning factor is Dallas, Texas is a great place to live, work, and play. I think as the other markets start feeling the same pause we do, these corporate headquarters in the West, in the Midwest, and the East Coast are going to find this place even more attractive to come down. And this might be the driver and the push for that. I hope it's just a quick pause in the market for everybody, for our entire country. I don't know what that is, but where we are right now on vertical, we're very confident, or I feel like we're very confident in backfilling all of that.
Thank you. So this one's for Joel. You know, you talked about Galaxy FBO, which congrats, that's amazing. My question for you is, how do you see aviation with the many industries that it does support continuing to play a key role in the area's economic development? And what are the ways in which you see the skies above Dallas influencing the types of projects developers pursue on the ground?
Well, I don't know how much what I see in the skies influences what gets developed on the ground, but what I can tell you is when I look out the window, I see airplanes now. We have a brand new facility there that is a U.S. Customs facility, and the Airport Administration built on top of that, and that facility opened just last year in 2021. And it's been a very nice facility for us, and for our staff in particular, we're now more connected to the airfield, and we can actually see out the window and look at what's coming and going. And when I see aircraft out there, I'm kind of a nerd this way. I look at who is that, whose aircraft is that, and it's very interesting. Earlier this year, I was seeing a lot of flights by a certain grocery company, and then something happened north of us that had to do with groceries. And so I see aircraft that belong to the companies that are pursuing these projects before those projects really get publicly announced. And I don't know what's going on necessarily, I just know that there's something going on. This happened with FedEx, this happened with Toyota, and a lot of the other major companies that relocated to North Texas in the past few years. And it's really kind of fascinating to see the diversity of industries that are coming in. We see a lot of insurance, we see healthcare, lately groceries. It's not just oil and gas anymore. And years ago, it was predominantly oil and gas and some cargo. So it has diversified, and that is influencing what happens out there. And for us, again, Addison doesn't just serve Addison. The airport is really a regional asset that serves a lot of the surrounding communities and the decision makers who come in and out for those business clusters at like the Richardson Telecom and Legacy in Plano. So when there's something percolating there, some business about to happen, we'll see signs of it very frequently at Addison when those decisions and deals are being set up and the decision makers are coming in and out. We don't necessarily know what the deal is, but we know something's happening, and it's an interesting take on things. As far as what's going to happen in the future, I think there's a number of things. The aviation industry doesn't show any signs of slowing down right now. Business aircraft deliveries are up, and their orders continue to be strong. There are new aircraft coming out, and people are buying these things. So there doesn't really seem to be a slowdown in the business aviation coming right now. If there is, none of us are seeing it. That's a good thing for us. It helps us out, and I think that'll help Addison continue to be strong because we're good at attracting those kinds of companies that want to be close to the transportation asset. Other things that are going to be interesting are the climatic impact of aviation is one thing that's a risk for us. And aviation is moving to sustainable aviation fuels and trying to be greener and reduce the carbon footprint. And we've started to see some, climate protest against business aviation and private aviation as being major polluters, and they're looking to address those concerns. So there's actively pursuit on that. Aviation on the other end, on the pilot training pipeline, the piston engine aircraft still use leaded aviation fuels, and the lead is probably going to go away within 5 years. So there's progress on fuels, both on getting the lead out of the aviation gasoline that the training aircraft use, and also moving towards large production of sustainable aviation fuels. So those are some interesting things that are happening on that side.
Thank you, Joel. So as Abby ran into the same challenge up against time, so I do want to hit 3 quick questions with the rest of the remaining panelists. Tim, kind of in the same vein around aviation is where you specialize. You talked a little bit about prefabrication. But what are some of the other design considerations being made around the aviation industry, and how do you see that DFW is geared up to support that?
Okay, appreciate the question. I'm going to change the perspective on that. I'll start off with my mom. My mom's 83 years old. I talk to her once a week. And every time we talk, she says, I don't believe there's ever going to be a flying car. All right? And it's because we talk about, why? Because we're currently designing the infrastructure in Asia to help support the flying vehicles. If you heard UAM, the the urban air mobility, it's Uber Elevate, and it's coming quickly. And by 26 to 28, you should start to see these vehicles flying if everything holds true. That's coming quick. And DFW is poised to be in a great position to be in that market right now. You have Bell over in Fort Worth that's developing a vehicle, right? And the Nexus, and that will be one of the ones you'll see flying. That means we need the infrastructure to support these vehicles, which is why we're engaged in Asia right now, helping build the infrastructure. It's building stations, it's building platforms on tops of like the heliport for Dallas Love Field. It's finding places that these vehicles can go, where they can land, where they can take off, where they're safe to operate. And so we see this great opportunity coming here for innovation in design, innovation in construction, because that's what it's going to take. Innovation in working with local authorities, people in positions to make decisions about safety, location. It's going to open up great collaboration opportunities for development, for developers, for general contractors. And so we're really excited to see that as a pretty significant trend that's coming. As a matter of fact, last week in Korea, they had a significant UAM conference where everyone's showing off all their vehicles, they're signing pacts and making promises on how soon they're going to be coming to market. Dallas is going to be one of those markets. Dallas and Los Angeles are going to be the first 2 markets that should be testing these vehicles. So it's exciting to see it. Just stand by and watch.
Thank you. So Mark, in research and in what your line of field and what you do, what are some of the aspects of today's macroeconomic climate that you feel are different than maybe some of the prior downturns that we've seen? And then also, what are the indicators you think that folks in this room, developers, architects, contractors, should be considering as they make preparations for their businesses moving into the future?
Okay. Yeah, in addition to my role at SMU, I'm also head of research and strategy at Crow Holdings, so I split my time in both. So we've been talking about a lot of these things and also trying to bring that into the classroom as well. So in terms of what's different this time, when you go back and look at past real estate cycles and economic cycles, it's usually, there's demand issue that takes place. That was during the global financial crisis, and there was credit dried up and demand really dropped. Or like in the early 90s, there's too much supply that's getting built. And I guess the same thing in the GFC, the global financial crisis, there's just too much lending that was going on. And those things are all things that are good leading indicators for what's going to happen. What's different today? Well, we have good demand. We still have low unemployment rates. Yes, they may go up a little bit, but it's still low. Supply is not out of line. We probably have too much excess housing because now people are working at home. So that's created inflation in housing and deflation in office buildings. So that's going to take some time for itself to rebalance it out. What we really have today is just what I would call sort of this financial repression. The Federal Reserve raising interest rates as much as they have. Those are up. The real interest rates, so taking, after inflation, real interest rates have gone up 3.5%. That is a huge move. And what's happened? The stock market came down and the bond market came down. And lending costs have gone up, so we've all, slowed down, put pencils down in terms of trying to do new development until some of those lending. Paradoxically, we need more supply to help bring inflation down. So those two are sort of battling with each other right now because we need the supply to help make it affordable on apartments and things of that nature. I think the things to watch for, if prices hold at their current level today, by the time we get to April of next year, we'll be back at the Federal Reserve's target of 2% on inflation. And if they sort of peak out in January, February, in terms of their rate increases, history has shown that within a year, they actually then have lowered interest rates 2%. And so for those of you who are trying to borrow money today, what the yield curve is telling you is that it's cheaper to borrow 10 years out longer than it is to borrow short-term money. So, you have an option value in waiting for maybe another couple of months and see what really pans out for interest rates. But what the bond market is telling you is it's going to be cheaper to borrow in the future than it is today.
Thank you. And apologize we weren't able to get to all the questions, but I think we were well informed by this group of panelists, so we'll wrap up, and if you give them a round of applause, thank you.
Thank you. Let's give panel number 2 another round of applause, please. And this brings us to our last panel today. But before we go into it, I would like to remind you that we are live streaming on YouTube and that today's discussion will be available on our YouTube page as well. Also, at the end of the event, we will distribute for the very first time the printed copies of our first report of Invest Dallas Forward, which you can also access digitally for free today by signing up on our website. With that in mind, I would like to welcome our next panel presenter for the last discussion, the new financial normal, how we got here, where we are, and where it's heading. Phil Appenzeller, CEO from Munch Hart Koff & Haar, can you please join me on stage?
Good morning. I'm with the law firm of Munch Hart Koff & Haar, and because my last name is Appenzeller, I'm pretty convinced that 22 years ago I was hired because my name just fit. We are a Texas-centric law firm with our headquarters here in Dallas. I've been a litigator my entire career, whether I was trying cases in the Army or acting as a civil litigator in federal and state courts. My job has always been to advocate and speak on behalf of my clients. So what does that mean? It means I have absolutely no independent thought. I simply advocate for my clients, or when I don't understand something, I have an expert to tell me what I need to say. So when I was asked to introduce this final panel today, I was told I could speak on whatever I wanted. I froze. My first thought was sports. For example, why is the Dallas Cowboy kicker, Brett Maher, not paid as much as Ezekiel Elliott? Or why is Ezekiel Elliott paid more than Tony Pollard, despite the fact that they carried the ball about the same amount of times? The second thought that came into my head was pop culture. Why are the Kardashians still a thing? So then I thought, well, maybe I combine the two topics and we talk about whether Kim Kardashian and should be liable for the damages that are currently caused in the cryptocurrency industry. So I quickly realized that relying on my own independent thought was probably not a good idea today and would probably get me in trouble. So I turned to two of my partners, one who is one of our senior real estate attorneys, Chip, and the other who's the head of our corporate transactional group, Rob. And I asked them to get their thoughts on what our topic is today, which is the new financial normal, how we got here, where are we, and where are we headed. So my real estate partner, Chip, said that he indicated that his clients' deals that are currently in the pipeline are all likely to close this year. That said, he's hearing from institutional clients, as we've heard from some of our former panel members, pencils are going down in the first quarter of next year. Smaller entrepreneurial clients are seeing some bargains, but money is more expensive. Development deals are worth 20% less than they were a year ago. Lenders have become more demanding, loan covenants are being broken, and he's getting more calls to discuss workouts on notes rather than new deals. After 2 shots of bourbon, I turned to my corporate partner, Rob, and said, Rob, what are you seeing from your clients? Rob was much more positive, first noting that Texas is a great place to do business, especially here in North Texas, and we should keep our chins up. He said there's a tremendous amount of dry powder as a result of a lot of cash that's sitting on the sidelines in private equity who don't want to return money to their investors. And even though the economy has slowed, he is seeing strategic buyers who are looking for deals that were not there a year ago when pricing was at an all-time high. So where does that leave me this morning? Again, I have no independent thought, and I don't know how to balance those two competing opinions. But what I do have today is a wonderful panel of experts that hopefully will help us make sense of it all. So with that, I turn it over to Doug Hutt, who's the chairman and CEO of Dallas Capital Bank, to introduce our panel members and to moderate this final session. Doug?
Phil, you said it all. Thank you. Let me introduce the panel and get them up here, and we'll get started for the last panel of the day. The only thing between the rest of you and lunch today. Banking is a small world. Banking and finance is a small world. So I'm delighted to say that our panelists are largely friends and competitors and folks that I've known for a long time. So maybe it'll be like an old homecoming here. Let's get started. Tyrus Sanders with Regions Bank, come on up. Robert Malloy, Regional President with Vantage Bank. Mark Gellenbach with President and Founder of True North Advisors. My old friend Larry Miller, President and CEO of North Dallas Bank and Trust. Wrestle that free. First of all, let me say also that when Elena first approached myself and Dallas Capital about participating in this, I was very excited because this is going to be great. I'll do it as long as I get to ask the questions of my friends here, and I'll throw them some curveballs and we'll have fun with it. But then later I was told I needed to stick to the script. So we'll stick to the script here today. Looking back in the most recent past here, this will be a question for all of you guys. As the other panelists have said today, we're all blessed to be in North Texas with the corporate relocations that we've been talking about, it seems like for a decade now, job growth, population growth, new residents coming in from both coasts, et cetera. But in you guys' perspective with your individual businesses, what is it about the local environment that continues to make Dallas, Fort Worth, North Texas so attractive? Tyrus, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you know, the household growth in the DFW area over the last 10 years has been phenomenal. I think it's 1.2 million in household growth and growing every day. and you're seeing different type of expertise move in. So you couple that with the expertise that's coming in from the West Coast as well as the East Coast. You know, our universities continuing to put out top-notch folks. It just makes it so attractive for corporate America to come here and to be a part of what we're doing. So I see lots of development in the middle market and continue to go as well as small business, and it's gonna, I see it thriving, right? It may be some slowdown, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's just a phenomenal market for people to come and be at. Be in the middle of the country is a great place to be, right?
Robert?
Yeah, I think we welcome all those that are relocating here because at least they were smart enough to choose Texas, so it's a good start. But there's everybody talks about the lack of income tax. There's a great reason to come here. The quality and the number of the workforce, the quality of workforce. I think there's two separate things to look at there. If it's a full corporate relocation, they're looking for something different than like a manufacturing location. Corporate location is more driven by a CEO. It's looking for quality of life, which is affordable housing. The guy at the chamber told me there was one CEO that came into town. The first thing he wanted to do was go to the 3 country clubs in town, and he was an avid golfer, so that was
Got his
the most
priorities
important.
straight anyway, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you've got people moving to town, the no income tax is a plus because obviously they're not here already. And then you go quality of schools, transportation, that kind of thing. But if it's a manufacturing relocation, then you're probably using local workforce. The income tax situation doesn't come into play, and it's more of a COO or CFO driving that, and it's more of a numbers game.
Mark, how about you?
Well, like my colleagues, I think I pinch myself every day I get up to be in the Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex and operate a business here. From a financial perspective, we're seeing a lot of big names move into our area in North Texas. I've been told that Dallas, Fort Worth will be the #2 financial hub of the United States within the next 3 years. We see big name private equity firms like Canyon relocating to Dallas, Fortress relocating to Dallas, Charles Schwab. I think we've had 6 Fortune 500 companies move here in the last 5 years. We have 24 Fortune 500 companies. That's all good. I will mention the comments made by the CEO of Canyon when he moved here, moving his headquarters from LA, and they have offices in New York and Paris and Hong Kong. He said, we celebrate business success. And he said when he moved from New York to LA to work under Michael Milken, that they used to have that attitude. And he no longer has that on the West Coast. But he feels that very alive, very vibrant business community that celebrates success.
Yeah. Well said. Larry?
Good morning, Doug.
Good morning.
I didn't know you were going to answer the questions. Good morning, everybody. I'm really surprised none of you guys mentioned August. I mean, August in Dallas, what better reason to move here, right? Yeah. No, if you can get folks to visit when it's not August, you'll get them to come to Dallas. I think everything that you gentlemen have said is part of the long list. The affordability, the education. I love our friends from Love Field are here today, and I really appreciate you guys. I just love every time we schedule a flight that I can fly directly from Love Field. But our friends at DFW, all the resources we have in the Dallas market really make us very attractive. But I think for me, the greatest resource we now have is the new Texans merging and mixing with the old Texans. The depth and diversity of talent and enterprise that's coming into our marketplace and how it just creates this large ripple effect. And so I'm very excited about what's going on in Dallas. Very attractive place, and I agree with everything y'all said.
Thank you. I think we can all agree we're blessed, and we don't want to let loose for a better hold, place to be employed and make a living in Dallas, Fort Worth, and North Texas. All roses. Over the last several years, we're kind of through the pandemic, COVID, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's the new influenza season, et cetera. But then how many black swans do we have? We get, COVID, and then we get a war in Europe, and then we get highest inflation that, well, maybe a couple of us on the panel have maybe seen inflation at a higher rate in our lives. Young guys like Tyrus probably haven't. But, crazy inflation, escalated interest rates, the yield curve, as we were talking about earlier, that as you and your teams are looking at the coming out of that series of what I call black swans and heading into still a lot of uncertainty volatility into 2023. How are you kind of adjusting, or how are your teams thinking about that as it relates to your own businesses going into next year? I'll start backward here. Larry?
I have to be very careful because my executives are in the room. Greatest bunch of bankers in Texas. I think it was Emerson said something like, do not go where the path may lead, but go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. And when I go back and think about the pandemic and what, particularly in the community banking space, was achieved there, and now as we've seen things like inflation impact our business, impact our bankers, I think the thing I'm really encouraged about is our guys seem to really embrace this stuff. They seem very invigorated about it. They're very creative. They're asking better questions. They're getting together. They're more connected than they've ever been. And I think last summer, we, as a group, came up with an inflation relief program for our employees that penetrated 95% of our employees got meaningful inflation relief. And our employees were just like, what? Well, it was an idea that started around a conversation that started with a bunch of bankers saying, what do we need to do to serve our employees? So I just think that the way that our bankers are thinking, communicating, and connecting has made a big difference in what we're doing.
Yeah, I'd say that there were a lot of silver linings coming out of COVID. One of the things that blew me away was our rapid adoption of technology, because we were forced to do that. We deal with high net worth clients, and it's obviously a high touch, high service type of clientele. It forced a lot of our over 50-year-old clientele to be used to meeting over Zoom. So that was a big thing for us. And then from our client base, I think like all of us, finding great talent is a challenge. Of our 45 employees, they live all over the Metroplex. And so some are having 40-minute to an hour-and-a-half commutes. And we moved to telecommuting, where we gave our employees 2 days a week where they could work from home. And we found that productivity did not drop off at all. In fact, over the last 3 years, we continue to beat the previous year's highs in terms of net new revenue. So it's been a boon to us, and it's made us aware of how we can shift and move with whatever comes to continue to serve our clients and thrive and grow.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, I'll echo the technology side. I think by pure dumb luck, about 3 years ago, we had a change at our CEO level, and our new CEO, Jeff Sennett, has a tech background. So right before COVID, we had some new systems in place. Everybody got laptops instead of having, stuck to your desk. So that the timing was perfect. And same thing, we've gone to the commuter, the telecommuting, and I think we require most people to come in maybe 2 or 3 days a week at a minimum. So that's been great. And the customers have embraced the new technology as well, more customer-friendly, user-friendly.
Tyrus?
Yeah, as you look at, you talked about the 3 black swans and how we're responding to it. Our bank has gone to more of the specialization. So if you think about technology, healthcare, transportation, defense, as you get up, companies with higher EBITDAs, we're putting more specialization around that, which is allowing us to predict where things may go. And our clients are liking to hear what we're seeing because we have such diversity across the company and across the country. We have it in different areas. We can kind of give them that background. So it's allowed us to navigate all these things that are coming about. And specifically with technology too, we're able to connect people that have seen things that our client may not have seen. And that added value is really putting us in a place where we can be successful.
Thank you, Tyrus. This next question kind of pivots off of some of the conversation we had on our prior 2 panels. And while we all agree we're fortunate to be in North Texas, Dallas, Texas, inward migration of jobs, corporates, et cetera. But, the world's not perfect. So as you look at it, as you talk to your teams or you talk to your clients, what critical issues are there out there that you hear about on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that, whether it's infrastructure or whatever, that when you look at the landscape, you hear these stories, that we need to work on so that we don't end up falling backward, we continue moving forward? I'll go back to Larry again.
Thanks. I think everything for me revolves around talent. We've got this longer-term look in terms of what we're trying to do. And so the concerns I have is getting people to work. We're all talking about, flexible work schedules and letting our managers manage. We have a very measurable industry, so we can create that freedom that we probably as bankers were afraid of before to do that, which encourages talent, retains talent. Getting them to work, public transportation, we're all proud Texans. I have a 3/4-ton diesel pickup truck, and by golly, I'm driving it by myself, right? And that's me. And so I think infrastructure around public transportation, but also the embrace of public transportation to be able to facilitate this expansion of our footprint. And then the second thing that I'm concerned with longer term is what is that next generation of worker all about and where are they coming from? We talk about how the growth of the population in our Metroplex and how blessed we are to have that. But if you draw a triangle going from Dallas-Fort Worth to Austin over to Houston and then back up, that's where all the growth in Texas is. About 50% of the counties in Texas are losing population. And so we talk at our bank about it takes 20 years to grow an employee. Where is that next generation of employee coming from? And so I'm a little focused on that. I don't know that bankers can solve that because I've had all the babies I'm going to have. But we need to find where that next generation of worker is coming from, get involved with our universities that were here. I was so excited to see them on the panel today. We're very involved with our banking programs through the state and the universities, bringing that new talent into our industry. That's the thing that we need to be able to do to continue to compete and to excel and move forward.
All right, thank you. Mark?
I don't know about you all, but I was blown away by the education panel. And like Larry, I focus a lot on where are we going to find talent. And I think it goes a step below college education to high schools. I see the impact of the pandemic. Had a big impact. I have an 18-year-old son who went to college, and I saw what happened, him missing his junior year, and I think there's a gap there that's going to affect a lot of people to even get to the point where they're college ready. So I think as a community, we all have to focus on education below the college levels. I know Eric and Carlos in the back, and I work with the Momentous Institute, which is a not-for-profit school in Oak Cliff, where we're trying to raise up the next generation of leaders and use education really to not only lift them out of, or their families, improve their economic status in life, but really make a good employee base for all of us here in Dallas.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, I think one challenge that, and I know it's at Vantage Bank and hopefully selfishly at others, there's just, there's a little bit of slowdown. And we have younger lenders that have known nothing but blow and go the past number of years. And now we got to kind of pull the reins back a little bit. And understandably, they don't like that, and nobody does. But, those of us have been around long enough, late 80s, early 90s, 2008, things can really go bad. And these new guys have to understand that, and things can really turn bad if you don't underwrite them correctly. So, we're into the more enhanced underwriting kind of thing, but just trying to educate, not that it's hard, but just trying to educate them on why we need to pull back a little bit.
Yeah. It's a conversation with your bankers and with your clients both, right? Yeah. Tyrus?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anybody if I said today. I would add a couple, which is a little bit off beaten path. With all the growth we have in North Texas, water is going to be a big issue. I know they've got the Cato Mills Lake that's going out northeast of here, but as its population grows, California's having that same issue now as well as Arizona. We got to be forefront of thinking about water and how we think about that. That's something that doesn't come up very often. But I would go back to the banking industry is development of young folks. We've got to make sure we spend time developing. I echo the fact that our education panel was phenomenal today. We sponsored the PLP program at UNT and a couple others around the state, but the development of people is important. And we have to see that from a banking perspective. We're not competing against other banks. We're competing against Amazon, we're competing against Microsoft, we're competing against whoever is out there because the same skill sets are needed across these different industries.
Thank you. This next series of questions will be on an individual basis. First one for Tyrus. Despite the rise of technology throughout a number of industries, let alone the headlines regarding the Great Resignation. People in relationships still remain at the forefront of many businesses, and you've been considered a leader regarding Region's 360-degree program. What are your thoughts regarding the importance of personal relationships, both from a corporate culture and retention, as well as business development and client satisfaction perspective?
Yeah, that's something that, you know, leading a market as I do is something that's the forefront of my mind all the time. From the perspective of how important diversity is, it's got to be the forefront of who we are. It's going to define Dallas-Fort Worth for years to come, how well we embrace diversity, how much we welcome it in. So we've got to be the forefront of our mind there. The second thing we've got to do, again, I mentioned others, develop folks. We've got to invest in the future. You know, I remember, Doug, I met you in 92, 93. I was in 89 training program.
I was really young then.
You were real young then, that's right. And I was even younger.
Yeah.
But we had development programs where we could develop folks and bring them along, and the return was not as immediate as it's requiring to be right now. So that's going to be the key. So as a result of that, we've got Education Guild. We're paying people to go back to school, right? So we've got organizations with universities where you don't have to pay it first, we'll pay it ahead of time, with 15 different universities across the United States where we'll pay folks to go back to school. And then also too, because I happen to be old school, I look at some of my colleagues out there, I've had trouble with this whole remote piece, right? But I'm embracing it. You know, Stephen out there beats me across the head about being flexible all the time. And we have to do that. We have to be flexible and give people an omni-channel way of meeting. And that really revolves into our clients as well. Clients want to go into a branch, they want to have technology, they want to do it the way they want to do it. So what we're trying to do is create that omni-channel environment where everybody can bank like they want to.
Thank you. The next one's for Robert. In the span of a decade, digital assets have become increasingly common, and while the popularity continues to grow, the lack of an overall regulatory framework, CFTX, I guess, parenthetical, seems to be one of the key obstacles to the overall acceptance becoming mainstream investment opportunities. Your bank has offered a Bitcoin savings plan since last April. What has been the reception, and what are some of the aspects of potential cryptocurrency regulation, and especially topical today, right?
Yeah, I appreciate being the one who has to use the word crypto in my response. So the scourge of society.
It's not my question, by the way.
Yeah, so let me address the scourge. No, like I said, 3 years ago, we had a CEO change, and Jeff is a tech guy and big into fintech, and he's on TCU's fintech board, and he's on the Texas Blockchain Council. So he's very into that. So partly based on that, partly based on demand, through NYDIG, we offered a savings plan, a Bitcoin savings plan, where it can just come out of your paycheck. And we did limit it to 5% of compensation, just to we didn't want anybody going crazy. And we had a 20% of our employees adopt it, so approximately 90 people. I thought that was a high number. I thought it'd be much lower. So, but we do have a lot of younger employees, so they're obviously more apt to try that. But as far as I know, back in April, Bitcoin was 40, it's 17 today. So maybe not fun for those who went in, but again, it's not a big number of their salary, so we haven't had any complaints so far. But just to, we did concentrate on Bitcoin only, because, Bitcoin and the blockchain technology behind it have not been compromised, famous last words, but, we tried to take the safest route. We want to give the employees a safe and financially effective way to get into it. There's no fees in this program, so you can get in, dip your toe into it, and see if you like it or not. So that being said, we're not a crypto crazy bank. It's just an amenity we've offered. We have done some things on the periphery of Bitcoin. We've lent on some data centers that have miners and other users as their tenants. So we've done that a little bit, but we're not out there looking to lend on Bitcoin.
Small laboratory, is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so as far as the regulation, obviously, that's not my forte, but something that's safer for the consumer, but still allows the ubiquitous nature of Bitcoin, because that's kind of what it's, or any crypto, that's what it's all about.
Great, thank you. Mark, at the onset of the market downturn, investors, families, and those that have exposure to the volatility of the markets may become skittish or look at or look to adjust their strategies around some of the immediate concerns that they have when you're having these conversations, apparently by Zoom these days too, right? With clients, what are their common concerns that seem to emerge throughout your discussions? How does your team address these concerns?
Yeah, lots of concerns this year, right?
Yeah.
Including crypto. I'm going to quickly pivot and answer Abby's first question about the World Cup and why it's important for North Texas. Dallas is going to host a major, is one of the 16 cities to host the 2026 World Cup. I have it on good authority that the Jones family and the Hunt family feel very good about either hosting the quarterfinals, semifinals, or even the finals. It is estimated to give the Qatari economy $20 billion. Now, we don't have to create a lot of stadiums, but even if we had half of that, $10 billion divided by 16 host cities, that's about $750 million. That's about 3x what hosting a Super Bowl would be. And Dallas, North Texas produced 5 of the 26 gentlemen that are on the USA roster. So I just had to get that in there. Yeah, interestingly, through the end of the third quarter, a 60-40 allocation, kind of that moderate, middle-of-the-road allocation that most investors felt safe with, was down 22%. So no longer do bonds offset a decline in equities. And so we've had to go and look at alternative investments, including private investments. We have about $1 billion out of our $3 billion that we manage on behalf of our clients that are in energy, in venture, in real estate, and other forms of private equity. So I think it's imperative that traditional investment advisors start to think about how to invest in non-traditional assets. We don't have any crypto exposure, fortunately, but they're viable investments. The good news is in North Texas, and in Texas in general, we're very energy friendly. That's very counter to the whole ESG mandate that's happening in finance writ large. The good news is we are energy independent, and there's lots of good money to be made in energy, and it'll be a long transition to green energy. So that, and in real estate, I think looking at things different than stocks and bonds.
Yeah, thank you. Larry, this one's near and dear to my heart. You know, over the last few years, things changed. They have changed a lot. You have a branch on every corner, and then you have Zoom calls, and you have the pandemic, and that all kind of accelerated the pace of change. What's your current view on the state of banking as it relates to the real estate that banks use? Do you need a branch on every corner, or do you need a branch, around every 5 or 6 miles apart? What's your view on how banking has changed as it relates to real estate?
Well, first, I just want to thank whoever's responsible for assigning the questions that I didn't get the crypto question. So, praying for you, Robert. You know, growing up through that cycle that you described when we were all wondering where we were going to buy gas, because literally all the gas stations were being converted into banks. I don't see us going back to that, but at North Dallas Bank, we are making a meaningful investment in our real estate properties. We think it's very, very important. We recently completed a project that was an in-box renovation of a 31,000 square foot, 50-year-old building. One of the most exciting things about that was I got new chairs. I was so excited, you know, because literally our furniture was 45 years old in that building. In the community bank world, typically what community bankers do, they go in, they build a building, they furnish it, they go to work, and then they never go back to the building. I think that's going to change. I think what bankers are going to recognize, even with all the advent of technology, that connectedness is still very, very important, particularly in Texas. Being across the desk from somebody is something that people still value, not necessarily all the time, but much of the time. And so what we've done is we've made a significant investment and commitment to expanding our footprint, investing in the properties that we currently own. We worked with Gensler. There was a representative of their team here earlier, and one of the things that they did in our visioning process, they asked me, they said, what do you want your banks to be? What do you want them to say? And it was an easy question to answer. I just simply said, whoever comes into this building, when they exit, I want them to believe that together we can. That covers my employees, that covers our visitors, that covers our customers. When you walk into a North Dallas Bank environment, I want you to feel possibilities in there. And I think we're creating that as we renovate our existing buildings and as we are designing our new buildings. We think it's important for accessibility. for visibility, and then also for connectedness. So we are not unaware of the cost of real estate and how things have changed in the environment. When we did this 31,000 square foot renovation, I've been at the company a long time, 40 years at the bank. And so in that renovation, we flipped our footprint basically. When I first came to the bank, 60% of your space was dedicated to customer-facing activity, 40% was backroom. Today, the largest growth in our industry is backroom support. And so we flipped that. About 40% of our new lobby space is customer-facing, 60% is support and backroom, and the sophistication, technology, the things that we've been able to deliver for both our clients and our employees reflect how we live and work today. So I'm excited about it. I think real estate development going forward in our banking industry will continue to be important.
Thank you. Last question here. This is for all of you. It's a chance for you all to look into your crystal ball and help everybody in the room, the businesses in the room, figure out what's going to happen in 2023. I know you're all putting your budgets together for next year, and you're looking at the yield curves and interest rates and all of that. The thesis would seem to be that we're going to have continued higher interest rates into 23, perhaps at a moderating level of increase. Question one is, do you agree with that assessment? And secondly, as you think about that, how does that make you or your teams adjust your own businesses as you talk to your clients heading into 2023? Iris, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's all about prudent, profitable growth. It's where we're really focusing on. How do we identify client selectivity at its all-time highest? Who are the right people to go through a downturn with, and how do we position them and us to be successful? So we're really looking to prudency, who are the right client selectivity, not being bashful about that. Who do you want to do business with long term? Because whoever you do business with, going through that cycles will be important to them. So we really want to focus on that piece as well. The other thing too, as we look at from a bank growth perspective, next year we'll have growth goals, of course, but they won't be as steep as they've been in the past. We'll flatten those out a little bit. We'll be more thoughtful around how we're going to bring business in, and then also too be more solution oriented. As you think about real estate and the growth of that right now, we won't stop doing real estate, but you'll see lower loan to cost type of advance ratios, right? We'll focus more there. On the C&I side, we'll pay more attention to cash flow leverage. How much debt do you have compared to EBITDA, and what are the thoughtfulness do you have around that? And then also too, the client selectivity piece of it, what type of balance sheets do they have? A lot of banks have really focused on cash flow, which is important, but we give a real strong look at the balance sheet. Balance sheet will get you through downturns. So as you think about those things, Doug, that's where we're going to go.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah,
what's your crystal ball look like?
Yeah, my guess is we're all going to have the same answer, basically. It's about credit quality in times like these, and the budgets are going to be relaxed as far as production, no question, because we want the quality. We're lucky to have a good stable of customers who we do a lot of repeat business with, so it's focus on credit quality, focus on taking care of the customers you have, and with prospective customers coming in probably with a little more enhanced underwriting, like you said, more equity, and obviously the rates are a challenge, so it's harder for anything to pencil these days. So, but it's all about credit quality right now.
Mark, you're going to have a different perspective because you're talking to folks about their bond portfolios versus the equity markets. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I think about real estate, specifically single-family residence. We made some institutional quality investments in the mid-teens, 2014, 2015, because there was a good opportunity with a lot of tailwinds. And that institutional ownership of single-family residence is actually becoming problematic and driving the cost of single-family residence up. 28% of the homes that were sold in Texas now were not owned by individual investors. In fact, Tarrant County, over 50% of the homes sold last year were institutional. So we're rotating out of those homes, those home investments that we did 7 years ago, and now starting to think about the big players that are underwriting 2-3% cap rates, that were financing it on floating rate at 2% and realizing that they can be upside down very, very quickly. And there's a huge impetus of private capital that needs to be invested. And so we've got to be very, very careful. And we started managing risk 3 years ago. We called the inflation thing way too early, but we think it's here to stay. And like Robert, I think there are a lot of people in our industry that have forgotten what it is with high interest rates and inflation, how that impacts business writ large.
Thank you. Larry?
Well, I was thinking about this question. It's a really important question, and part of your question was, what do we think is going to happen? For the first time in a long time, I think the Fed's been very transparent and very true to what they said they were going to do, and they've actually been doing it, even though it seems so incredible that they could make the significant jumps that they have. And so they're telling us, we're hearing that it's going to moderate, and we're planning on that. We expect that they will begin to moderate, to slow that down. And the point of the challenge for me is not so much the change in rate, because our bankers as an industry have always been able to adopt and adapt, if you will, given the time frames to be able to do that. But it's been the velocity, the pace of change. It's been incredible. And so I think we're all expecting to see a little bit of a dip or a trough as a result of that, because our burden is still to fairly compensate our depositing customers. And so moving those rates on that side of the balance sheet for us is a little costly initially, and we'll earn our way out of that. But that's been the biggest challenge for us, and we see that being able to moderate next year as the rates slow down a little bit, and we'll get caught up with them.
Yeah. Thank you. Couple of observations from your comments. One, if we're having this conversation in Dallas, Texas, imagine what a similar panel might be having in Kansas City or Sioux City or wherever it may be. So cautionary look into the future here, even in the world of the Emerald City, right? And certainly because we're having that conversation, it tells you probably the Fed is on the right track to get things slowed down and get inflation back to the 2 to 3% range. Also, great comments. Thank you. Are we good to go, or do you want us to ask some more curveball questions to the panel here? All right. So anyway, Tyrus, Robert, thank you. Mark, Larry, thank you.
Thank you.
And we're going to turn it back over to. There you go. All right. Thank you all. Stay. All right. Exactly right.
And now for the closing speech. I wish I had figured out a way to work the Kardashians into my closing speech, as Phil did. That would have guaranteed success. But yes, well, I'd like to first of all thank the Omni Las Colinas Hotel for their amazing hospitality and for sponsoring the event with their venue today. So thank you. Please, round of applause for the Omni Las Colinas Hotel. And I would like to thank again to the amazing leaders that I have met on this journey. For those of you who don't know yet, it took us about 7 months to produce this report. So it's been 7 months of nonstop, sometimes about 5-6 interviews a day. With the lovely executives in this room. So I'm personally blown away by what we've been able to create and accomplish. You're about to see it in a moment. And I cannot wait to start working on the second edition of Invest Dallas Fort Worth. That's going to happen in 2023. We're looking to launch towards the end of next year, same as we did for this edition. And as you can see, we have an amazing audience with us today. It is a testament to not only the necessity of what we do, which is business intelligence to attract and promote investments and business to the North Texas region. That's why we do what we do. But it also speaks to the character of this business community, a community that leans in, rises above, and strives for more. So I'd like to thank again to our incredible sponsors again for helping make today possible. Our gold sponsors, Addison Airport, Collin College, Dallas Capital Bank, Dallas Metro Group, McCarthy, NDBT, Regions Bank, Scott and Reed General Contractors, SMU Cox School of Business, Texas Women's University, UNTG Brent Ryan College of Business, Vantage Bank, our silver sponsors, the Dallas Love Field Airport, Munchhart, our bronze sponsors, Access Healthcare, Cadams McShane Construction Company, Riveron as well, and our honored sponsors, Gensler, Gordon Highlander, and True North Advisors. So as you leave, please make sure to grab your complimentary copy of Invest Dallas Fort Worth 2023. It's a big one, almost 200 pages. You guys have kept me busy. And also, I would really appreciate your feedback. You can write to me directly. My email address is amanak@capitalaa.com, or you can email contact@capitalaa.com. Last but not least, while DFW might be newly released, we have already started the update for the second edition of Invest San Antonio. And by the way, we also have Kenny Fuller in the room, who flew in from San Antonio this morning for the conference. So yes, I'm currently working on our Invest San Antonio 2023 edition, and then as soon as I wrap that one up, I'll be back working on the Invest Dallas Fort Worth 23-24 edition. So we're launching Invest San Antonio, by the way, in May next year, so get ready for that Leadership Summit. And once again, thank you all for joining us today. We had a wonderful time with you, especially to our speakers, moderators, and panelists, and our sponsors for supporting our efforts. Thank you. I wish you a fantastic week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you for the second edition of our Invest Dallas Fort Worth publication. Have a great day.